All right, so here we are. They're just starting their service to Mary here. And they're in the honey house. Remember, they loaded up Our Lady onto the wagon and they carried her into the honey house. June played us a gloomy sounding song on the cello while August retold Black Mary's story start to finish. When she got to the part about the slaves touching Our Lady's heart and how she filled them with fearlessness and plans of escape, June turned up the volume. Our Lady became so powerful, said August, that the master was forced to put her under house arrest, to chain her in the carriage house. She was cast down and bound up. The blessed, blessed mother, mumbled Violet. Neil and Otis took the chains and started wrapping them around Our Lady. The way Otis tossed the chain around in the candlelight, I was sure it would be a miracle if he didn't kill somebody. August went on. But each time the master chained Mary in the carriage house, she would break the chains and return to her people. August paused. She went around the circle and looked at us one by one, letting her eyes settle on each face like she wasn't in any kind of rush. Then she lifted her voice. What is bound will be unbound. What is cast down will be lifted up. This is the promise of Our Lady. Amen, said Otis. June began to play again, this time in a more joyful tune, thank goodness. I gazed at Mary, wrapped head to toe in rusted chain. Outside, heat lightning pulsed across the sky. They all seemed to be sunk in their meditating, or whatever it was they were doing. Everyone's eyes were closed, except Zach's. He stared right at me. I glanced at the poor, shackled Mary. I couldn't bear seeing her like that. It's only a reenactment, August had said, to help us remember. Remembering is everything. Still, the whole idea wrapped me in sadness. I hated remembering. I turned and walked out of the honey house into the warm hush of night. Zach caught up with me as I reached the tomato garden. He took my hand, and we kept walking, stepping over May's wall, walking into the woods without speaking. The cicadas were going crazy, filling the air with their strange brand of singing. Twice I walked into a spider's web, feeling the fine, transparent threads across my face, and I liked him there, a veil spun from the night. I wanted the river, its wildness. I wanted to strip naked and let the water lick my skin, suck river stones the way I'd done that night Rosalind and I'd slept by the creek. Even May's death had not ruined the river for me. The river had done its best, I was sure, to give her a peaceful ride out of this life. You could die in a river, but maybe you could get reborn in it too, like the beehive tombs August had told me about. Remember when we read that chapter? Way back, like chapter 1 or 2, when her and Rosalind were in the river, and I said that that's a lot of symbolism in literature begins with water, and it oftentimes will symbolize a rebirth. So that's what Lily's kind of touching on here too. Maybe you could be reborn in it. So it signifies or it symbolizes a new beginning, a new life. Beneath the trees, moonlight trailed down and steered us toward the water. Water can be so shiny in the dark. We stood on the bank and watched the moving pockets of light, letting the water sound swell up around us. We were still holding hands, and I felt his fingers tighten around me. There was a pond near where I used to live, I said. Sometimes I'd go there to wade in the water. One day the boys from the next farm were there fishing. They had all these little fish they'd caught fastened onto a stringer. They held me down on the bank and hooked it around my neck, making it too small to pull over my head. I was shouting, "Let me up! Get that off me!" But they laughed and said, "What's the matter? Don't you like your fish necklace?" "Damn boys," Zach said. A few of the fish were already dead, but most of them flapped around with their eyes staring at me, looking scared. I realized if I swam out into the water up to my neck, they could breathe. I got as far as my knees, but then I turned back. I was too afraid to go any further. I think that was the worst part. I could have helped them, but I didn't. "You couldn't have stayed out in the pond forever," Zach said. "But I could have stayed a long time. All I did was beg them to undo the stringer. Begged. They said to shut up. I was their fish holder. So I sat there till all the fish died against my chest. I dreamed about them for a year. Sometimes I'd be hooked onto the chain with them. I know that feeling, he said. I looked as far into his eyes as I could see. Getting arrested? I didn't know how to put it. What about it? He said. It changed you, didn't it? He stared at the water. Sometimes, Lily, I'm so angry I want to kill something. Those boys who made me wear the fish, they were angry like that too. Angry at the world. And it made them mean. You have to promise me, Zach, you won't be like them. I don't want to, he said. Me either. He bent his face close to mine and kissed me. At first it was like moth wings brushing my lips, then his mouth opening on mine. I gave way against him. He kissed me gently, but at the same time hungrily, and I liked how he tasted. The scent of his skin, the way his lips opened and closed, opened and closed. I was floating on a river of light, escorted by fish, jeweled with fish, and even so much beautiful aching inside my body, with life throbbing beneath my skin and the rushing waves of love taking over. Even with all that, I could feel the fish dying against my heart. When the kiss was over, he looked at me with burning in his face. Nobody will believe how hard I'm going to study this year. That jail cell is going to make me earn grades higher than I ever got. And when this year is over, nothing can keep me from leaving here and going to college. I know you'll do it, I said. You will. And it wasn't just words. I'm good at sizing up people, and I knew for a fact he would make himself into a lawyer. Changes were coming. Even to South Carolina, you could practically smell them in the air. And Zach would help bring them. He would be one of those drum majors for freedom that Martin Luther King had talked about. That's how I like to think of Zach now, a drum major. He faced me, and shifting around on his feet, he said, I want you to know that He stopped and looked up into the treetops. I stepped nearer to him. You want me to know what? That I care about you. I think about you all the time. It crossed my mind to say there were things he didn't know about me, that he might not care so much if he knew them. But I smiled and said, I care about you too. We can't be together now, Lily, but one day, after I've gone away and become somebody, I'm going to come find you, and we'll be together then. You promise? I promise. He lifted the chain with his dog tag from around his neck and lowered it over my head. So you won't forget, okay? The silver rectangle dropped down under my shirt, where it dangled cold and certain between my breasts. Zachary Lincoln Taylor resting there, along with my heart, wading in up to my neck. That is the end of chapter 11.